Medical experts are slamming the CDC's guidance about kids returning to the classroom, writing in USA Today, quote, "The CDC misinterpreted our research on opening schools. It should loosen the rules now." Senator Marco Rubio is one of the lawmakers demanding answers on how this happened, and he joins us now. Wonderful to have you, sir. This is quite a consequential misinterpretation.
It is, and look, I don't think there's any doubt. We're going to wait and see their answer. I mean, I'm going to ask them for how they got to this point, but when you have the researchers whose data is what they use to reach these conclusions, and then you have the findings come out, and it basically sort of protects the status quo and gives cover to districts that do not want to open, you have questions. You start to wonder whether there's some political influence here. I mean, here's the bottom line of what common sense tells you. Common sense tells you there are powerful teacher unions in parts of this country who are very important to the Democratic Party, key allies of Joe Biden, and they don't want to open. And rather than have to line up against them, this is a scientific cover, or a pseudo-scientific cover, for them not to have to reopen. And I think there needs to be questions asked about this.
I think you make some excellent points here. You want a Tiger team to go in there and reevaluate this? You're saying that if schools followed the Biden plan offered by the CDC, 90% of the schools will be closed. And you also talk about the 3-foot distance, which is acceptable based on science, as opposed to the 6-foot distance that we have talked about for the past year, Senator.
Yeah, like anything else, when you make decisions about this, it's about cost versus benefit. And the cost of not reopening schools, we know, is very, very high. We see the mental health crisis among young people, the learning losses that are occurring, not to mention the social aspects of it. And the benefits, I think, are of diminishing return at this point. There is clear science and evidence that includes schools that have been open now for months, including in Florida, that you can reopen schools safely, even without vaccines in place, even without rigorous testing, for example. And it can be done. It is being done. And there's no reason why more places can't do it. But to date, I think it's up to 50% of schools across the country are not open full-time for in-class instruction.
It's quite an outrage, and so we'll pay attention to that. I also want to ask you about this today. It's likely that the House will pass the COVID relief bill. Senator Manchin, one of your colleagues, he was on Special Report with Brett Baer last night, answering a question about what happened to the bipartisan idea.
What happened? There wasn't a single Republican.
Well, we did agree on a good bit. There was an awful lot of Republican input in that bill that I worked on, and the things I was able to put in there, we talked about. The bill at the end at 1.9 was more than what they could go. I understand that and respect that. And at the end, when we were able to make a few adjustments here and there, it was a bill that I could support.
Senator, was there significant Republican input?
No, and look, obviously there are some things that people had opinions about that found their way in there, but ultimately we've done 6 COVID relief bills now in the Senate, 5 of them under President Trump. All 5 of them were bipartisan, meaning both sides agreed to it. I worked on all 5 of them, and the PPP program is an example. So this is the first time that they have to ram something through on a party line vote with people that are willing to be supportive. You could have had probably 25, 30, 35 Republicans. There's a lot of COVID provisions that I could have been supportive of. The problem is they stuck all kinds of things in it that had nothing to do with COVID, and even the things that had to do with COVID, like school reopening funds. You're making school reopening funds available for districts who can decide not take the money and then not reopen. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah,
and that's why I wanted to incentivize reopening.
We'll see what he does in the filibuster. Quick question on this. Do you think Republicans in Congress prosecuted this case publicly as well as you could? You all supported checks to a lot of Americans, and there's no debate on that. But a lot of the other stuff you firmly disagree with, and so do your Republican colleagues. But we didn't hear a ton about that publicly, Senator. Why not?
Well, let me just say that when you call something the COVID relief bill, you see by and large across the media, which is increasingly consolidated in the hands of a handful of corporate entities, they cover narratives. They cover narratives, and the narrative they wanted to cover is this is a really good bill. It's going to help a lot of people. It's going to change the planet Earth. It's going to pull people out of poverty, at least for 12 months. And anybody who's against it doesn't care about working Americans, doesn't care about COVID, and doesn't care about struggling people. That's the narrative they wanted to cover. And that's the narrative they put out there consistently. So yeah, we can come on this network, we can go on a couple other places and talk about it, but by and large, the narrative they wanted to cover is this is called COVID relief. The bigger it is, the more people it helps. Why aren't you for it? And it's really popular, by the way. And anything other than that, it just didn't get covered. So we just got to continue to work hard to get our message out there.
Okay, Senator, thank you for your time today. More to come. Hope you come back soon. Okay?
Absolutely.
Marco Rubio, thanks.